Start again. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Now the speaker's on. Welcome to the Homes and Communities Committee. We'll start with apologies for absence.
Yes, Chairman, apologies submitted by Councillor John O'Lee.
Thank you. I think everyone else is here actually. Yeah, good. Item 2, declarations of interest by members and officers and as to the party whip. No. Item 3, declaration of any intention to record the meeting. The meeting is being recorded by the council, and we also have video recording which will go onto Facebook as well. No one else recording? Thank you. Item 4 then, the minutes of the meeting held on 30th September 2019. Everyone happy with the correct record? Yeah. Yes. Okay, thank you. I'll sign those straight after the meeting. And then item 5, we have a tenants involvement presentation, and I'd like to welcome Richard Tracy and Jeanette Hardy, our tenant representatives, who are going to give us a presentation. If you'd like to come forward.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for inviting us along. We're both involved tenants. Jeanette has done it for 32 years, and I've been involved tenant for 10 years. In fact, no, sorry, 12 years. So we've got a little bit of expertise, I think, now as to what we're doing and where we're going from. So the total length of experience, which we sat and actually worked this out, the total length of experience of all our tenants, involved tenants, is 89 years. It's quite an achievement that some tenants have been on 2 or 3 years, and Jeanette's been on the longest at 32 years. So, but we've also got quite a bit of expertise, we feel. We've both been on procurement, governance, we've had governance training, procurement training. We've sat on panels to look at procurement for several things. We've also had housing law training, and I am a member of the Chartered Institute of Housing. So we've got, at present, we've only got 3 tenants and residents associations. Why that is, we don't know, although at one time there were 30 plus. But over the years, people have changed the way that they want to get involved with new and shared homes. We all live busy lives now. We didn't do it one time, we were quite settled in what we did. But now, young families don't want to get involved. So we've got to look at other mechanisms for getting tenants involved. We go about and do estate walkabouts. I know several of you know that, you've probably seen us on estate walkabouts. I know Irene has. Lawrence goes on estate walkabouts with us, and we look at the estates, how they're managed, and make recommendations if we think they're necessary. Now, turning to our panels, we've got a service improvement panel, a performance monitoring panel, a tenant forum, and a tenant scrutiny panel, all of which feed information eventually via various mechanisms back to the board of New Shared Homes. So the performance monitoring panel makes recommendations to the service improvement panel, which then goes to the forum. Now the forum is an open forum for all involved tenants.
All tenants. It don't have to be an involved tenant, anybody can turn up.
Apparently Jeanette's just corrected me there, anybody can turn up. So they can come on, if they've got a query, they can query members of staff, New York Homes members of staff. If any councillors are there, we'd like to see some councillors there, they can query things with them. We've also got the Tenant Scrutiny Panel. And the Tenant Scrutiny Panel looks at any areas, specific areas that need looking into. I.e., we've looked at universal credit, which we're looking at present. We've looked at antisocial behaviour for the company, made recommendations as to how improvements can be made. And we've also got tenant board members. 3 tenant board members, 3 independents, and 3 councillors. We take part in surveys. These surveys can be national surveys sometimes, or local surveys from the, that appear in Home from Homes and maybe even The Voice, I don't know. As I mentioned earlier, we deal a lot now with contractors, and we feel it's important that tenants do have a say in who is appointed as a contractor to carry out work in their properties. So recently we've done gas servicing procurement, gardening procurement with a company called Verdi, electrical rewire contracts, and also gas servicing. And we've looked at those, looked at pricing, looked at how they're performing, mark them up by a scorecard, which we've done to do with New York Homes, and then New York Homes then appoint them. Interestingly, we also have something called an empty homes inspection team. A group of tenants who you may have seen in photographs, with hard hats, who go into properties, and these are void properties. Will go in after they've been repaired or sometimes not been repaired, look at the way that they've been left, and make recommendations to improve the relet standard and ensure that tenants are happy with their homes. We've averaged 14 a year at present, and these are spread across the district. We go in there, we ensure that they're clean, that they are safe, that such things even as window locks work, because how many people actually have window locks these days and lose the keys? So a very important thing that New Yorkshire tenants do. This one?
Which one is that? This one? Yeah, our key achievements this year, obviously we've done a lot of work around the Green Paper consultation. We had a training session on Housing Ombudsman, and our voices were heard on the Green Paper. We took down the survey, we did the survey, we went through it all. We made recommendations of what we thought should and shouldn't. It was to do with governance, it was to do with regulations, it was to do with health and safety, obviously Grenfell, sorry. And then obviously we did 9 events throughout the district to do with the Addison Act. We also went down to the Houses of London and House of Commons, which is there, with Rob and Becky. You went to the one at Nottingham
I went to the one at Nottingham with Steve, and we had a very interesting session with Nottingham City Homes on how they were celebrating the Addison Act and the achievements that they did.
Yeah, I mean the one at London we spoke in great lengths to Nottingham City Homes, and the other one Lincoln, they were there, and we forged links with them. Obviously we want to work at making tenants less stigmatised and giving tenants a greater voice and make sure that we're listened to. because sometimes I feel that tenants in the district don't feel that they're listened to, and if you ask a tenant why they don't make a complaint, it's because they say, well, what's the point? And I think that attitude needs to change. It goes in fits and stages. Some tenants will make the complaint, but other tenants, the majority of the tenants won't. And I think that's because they just think that District Council don't listen, or Newark and Sherwood Homes don't listen, and I think that's what needs changing. Because at the end of the day, it's their home. So the next one is we did the green paper consultation at the Lacey Court over the fire regulations, wasn't it?
Yes.
And then we did the bottom two are, one is the tenant forum, and the other one was when we did the official complaints. Obviously, the scrutiny panel are the last stages of a formal complaint. And I think we've done 6 over the last probably 7 or 8 years. And out of the 6 that we've done, I think there was only 1 that we found in the tenant's favour, and the other 5 were found in the district's favour. So,
we've reviewed the RELEX standard with responsive repairs to ensure that tenants are very happy with the standard of their homes when they move in. We've carried out a scrutiny exercise on the antisocial behaviour service delivered by our own tenants in the estates team to ensure that it mirrors as much as possible what the District Council's antisocial behaviour service does, and that it is fit for purpose, and we found it was fit for purpose. We have reviewed the repairs priority times with the responsive repairs manager to ensure that tenants aren't waiting too long for some of their repairs. I'll say some of their repairs because some of them obviously do take a long time to do, but like all companies, we have problems. Newark and Sherwood Home have problems getting certain staff, such as plumbers and gas fitters, which causes a problem. We've observed the customer access service delivering their service to see how they operate, to see what sort of response times they give to phone calls, and also the type of service that they are delivering and offering. And as I said earlier, we also do walkabouts across the district in order to review the current process and make recommendations to try and improve the service. We hosted a TPAS event in February this year at Everyday Champions Church, which we had at least 8 or 9 other housing companies or housing providers join us, and we had a very informal chat about that and work with them. We've had training on equality and diversity, and also the dreaded GDPR. We've attended an EMTPF showcase event at Newark Showground in July, which I didn't attend unfortunately, but I know Jeanette did.
yeah, it was the East Midlands Tenant
Participation Forum.
Yeah, I think there was about 13 throughout the district. We dealt with complaints, we dealt with recycling, we dealt with antisocial behaviour, basically swapped ideas with different providers and sort of trying to work out who'd got the better relet time and stuff like that, and why theirs was working well and ours wasn't, or ours wasn't, theirs wasn't, if you know what I mean. And that sort of thing, really. It was quite well attended. I think there was there was about 9 or 10 actually, different providers. No Lincoln City Homes, as was Nottingham's.
Yeah. We're also midway through the scrutiny exercise. This is a tenant panel scrutiny exercise on the impact of universal credit on our tenants. Now, we know that rent arrears have gone up as a result of universal credit, and also several tenants, quite a few tenants are on a system where their rents are having to be paid directly to the landlord as a result of getting into arrears. We had a meeting with the Department for Work and Pensions. One of their senior managers came up to talk to us, and universal credit is so fluid that there's nothing really sort of set in stone now. It's all changing. For instance, the what do you call it? Sorry about this. I'm just lost train of thought for a second. For instance, the legacy benefits. That's what I'm trying to work out. The legacy benefits will not be going live until 2023 or sometime before 2023, between next year and 2023. However, the Department for Work and Pensions have got no idea as to when this will happen in this particular area. Now, this will have an impact on vulnerable tenants who particularly cannot use computers, maybe are disabled, physically disabled or mentally disabled. They will not be able to access the services properly. So it's important that provision is made for this. And this is something that David Price from Newark and Sherwood Homes, the DWP, the Citizens Advice and ourselves are looking into. We've also had a review of we're looking at a review of local service standards, which were last implemented in 2014 to see how they need to be changed. And above all, through our tenant forum, we're raising money and awareness for local charities. £400 in 2016 for Macmillan Cancer Research, £500 in 2017 for Beaumont House, £400 in 2018 for Lincolnshire and Nottinghamshire Air Ambulance, and Reach is the nominated charity for this year.
And so far we've raised £147, and the next one is in December, so that will be the last one, and then we'll hand the money over. Throughout the year we've forged links with neighbouring tenants. We've done East Midlands Homes, Melton Mowbray, Lincoln City, Notts Housing, Notts Community Housing. We've had meetings with Derwent, we've had meetings with Leicester, and we just sort of get together and have informal chats, or we talk about the different areas of how they provide their homes and what can be done. We looked at whether or not we would be able to share workforces or share services and stuff like that, and that's something that we're still looking into. There's a meeting tomorrow at Nottingham that I was supposed to be going to, but unfortunately I've had to pull out, but somebody else is going in my place that's going to be dealing with this as well. We did a big meeting at Everyday Champion Centre, and we've just rewrote the Code of Conduct and the Code of Confidentiality, and we've worked on how we control and manage meetings, etc., and that sort of thing. Obviously with the council going back in, we haven't formalised these yet, so we've sort of wrote them all, and then hopefully in April it will come to you lot and you can have a look at it. And that's obviously that one there. We did our governance training.
Right, what next? Well, the important thing is we're going to be supporting transition of the social housing service back into the council. This is something that we feel is important, that we are seen to be working together to ensure that tenants are happy with the service that is being offered. We're ensuring that tenants keep their voice, and we're working with partners to tackle the stigma and other principles outlined in the government's Green Paper. We want to work with collaborative working with members and management. And if possible, as a wish list, we would like a dedicated officer for tenant involvement, as well as raise awareness of the social housing regulator and their role. We also would like, if possible, to be active participants within this committee. If that's not possible, we'd like to find out why, but we're certainly something we'd like to look into. As I explained earlier, our tenants and some of our tenants and TRAs have failed, going down from 30 plus down to 3. So we need to increase digital involvement, making full use of social media platforms, which we know the District Council already operate. Newark Sherwood Homes don't do so many. So we would like to make full use of your facilities to make tenants more aware of what is involved. We'd like a regular page in a Tenant or Resident magazine, and we would wish to introduce mystery shopping as an additional form of tenant involvement to check on services across the district. And above all, we'd like to increase levels of involvement. Thank you very much for listening. Has anybody got any questions? Please.
Well, first of all, thank you very much indeed, Richard and Jeanette, for that excellent presentation. There's certainly a huge amount happening, and you've been very busy indeed and done some fantastic work. So thank you very much for everything you do on behalf of the tenants, on behalf of the council and the company. And thank you for your excellent presentation this evening. I think, Malcolm, you had a question first of all.
Thank you for that. You mentioned on a number of occasions that you make recommendations.
Yeah.
Do you have an impact?
Sorry?
Do you have an impact?
We have an impact, yes. Yes, Newark Sherwood Homes quite often will listen to us and take it on board. For instance, the antisocial behaviour one, we did a massive repairs report.
Yeah.
Making plenty of recommendations in there on how they could streamline the services. And yes, they took them on board.
We were part of the reason why they now no longer send you out that stupid bit of paper that gives you 3 months' notice on a repair. We also did it so that now that we don't have cold callers, or supposedly we're not supposed to get cold callers. I know there's the odd ones that come through, they don't happen anymore. We've also done it so that some of them have been shortened in the times of like priority 1, priority 2 and all that, like we did that. The antisocial behaviour one, when we did the thing, it was like they were supporting the victim and not they were supporting the perpetrator and not the victim as such. So now we've put together a little booklet with all the people in there that offer support to the victims, and that's been done. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's massive input, but obviously at the end of the day, we can only put in what you allow us to.
Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank Richard, who's been very helpful to the Cleveland Square Community Centre, which we've opened every few days. We started a coffee morning every Monday. We've got a band, music playing how to play instruments. We've got a knit and natter group. Many people don't realise Newark and Sherwood Homes have got centres which many councillors don't realise they actually can use for free. So I think it's important that councillors do know they can use the premises of their local building as a community hub to get more activity involved with residents and families that need support. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think that is part of the problem. People don't realise, and that is something that Newark and Sherwood Homes and Newark and Sherwood District Council fail at. They don't publicise enough what they do. I mean, you need to do that more. You need to say that these centres are here, come and use them, because we're going to lose them if they don't.
Thank you. Anyone else want to come in? Irene.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Jeanette. Hello, Richard. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Irene.
This is not meant any way personally for you, because I know you do work hard, but I've sat and listened. I've had meetings with Rob May, and I've had meetings with Karen White over the over the years. I'm now in with Dave Newmarsh and a few more. I'd like to know these contractors that we've got now, who actually allowed these contractors to take on the repairs for Newark and Sherwood homes, because I've heard nothing but complaints about Matthew and Tenant. I've heard nothing about complaints regarding the rewiring for the electrics. I've heard nothing of the condition, the filthy state that Newark and Sherwood homes has been let into, and I've also been informed by Councillor Dawn that on this I can speak for her as well. Our workload regarding tenants and Newark and Sherwood homes, with the, I don't know about anybody else, with the last 18 months, 2 repairs are supposed to have been done. Oh yes, they're supposed to have been done, but they haven't been done. So the scaffolding up there that's been paid for a long time, the roof are supposed to have been fixed. The roof isn't fixed, so you've got to get tenants and everything to come down. Councillor Goff agreed to let me take one on up at 9 Ash Road. A young couple was given accommodation up there, property up there. There was no gas fire. The roof was leaking when they moved in. They was given, I've asked Dave Newmarsh, would it be possible for a fire to go in there, and would they allow a certain amount of redecoration allowance to use young tenants for the repairs that's been, well, what the tenants did at the Newark and Sherwood Homes should have taken on. Newark and Sherwood Homes hasn't had enough electricians, plumbers, workforce whatsoever to carry on. You might think I'm a moaner and a groaner, I know man what have you, but I'm not. I say it as it is, and I can prove what I say because I've got letters that Tenants has given me to speak on their behalf. I've also played fair with Newark and Sherwood Homes' officers and Newark and Sherwood District Council officers, that them tenants has been there, or I've been in their home, or they've come to me and the tenant has spoke to Newark and Sherwood Homes, or spoken to Newark and Sherwood District Council. I've come to the conclusion that Newark and Sherwood Homes has got very little respect for some. I'm sorry, for some of their employees. I've also got a copy. Please bear with me because I've also got a copy of the criteria that the relets are supposed to be let in. Now we've just let 2 relets. And I'm sorry.
All I was going to say, Irene, was that we have got a Newark and Sherwood Homes performance monitoring report later on the agenda, and Dave Newmarch is here, and I'm sure he'd be very happy to respond to those comments. But that's probably something for later on in the agenda.
But when you've been ignored, as long as I've been ignored, and as long as Councillor Dawn's been ignored, and when you try to get officers' phone numbers so you can speak to them, and you're told no, you can't have them without that officer's permission. And you're having to go down to Farrer Close to speak to some of these officers down there, and then you're told you shouldn't be down there because this is a working office. So I'm just saying what's been put up. But thank you very much. I know you don't like listening to what I've got to say, but I've got no reason not to sit here and speak the truth. And are we carrying on now with this repair, and are we going straight on to universal credit? Means that Richard bought the universal credit up.
Again, yeah, that's in the performance report later on. So we'll come back to that
later on. Right, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. The Tenants and Residents Association says there's only 3 now in the local vicinity of the local areas of villages or parishes. Firstly, is there any reasoning behind it? Is there any reasoning that the engagement's dropped out? And also, you know, the actual Tenants Association, is it a make-up of a certain area, or is it, because I know you're elected to it,
Yeah.
or is it the whole community of the Newark and Sherwood actual district area?
Right. If to answer the first question, the 3 remaining TRAs, to my knowledge, are Bottrah, which is Booton and Allerton. There's one over there. There is one at Collingham, and there is one at Coddington, I think it is. Is it Loudon? Sorry, Loudon. So there might be 4 then, because I think there's one still at Coddington. They consist of a chair, vice chair, development officer, secretary, obviously. I think some of the reason that the groups dropped was we lost a dedicated worker. I mean, obviously, when you've got housing officers that are trying to do housing applications and deal with housing issues, they haven't got time to get involved or to drum up the involvement. I mean, obviously, they go and talk to tenants when they sign up time, but as you all know, anybody that's got a new house, they just want to know where they can put their kitchen, where they can put the cooker, where they can, and that's, they don't read the leaflet. Some of it is also the fact that it's too much paperwork. You have to sign up to be a treasurer or a, you know, they don't want that. Some of it is 0-hour contracts. They can't attend meetings. They can't give given times. We've come up with doing surveys from homes. We've come up with we've got a web page. We ask the odd question and they can answer them. We've done, there's a gardening club that one of the blokes goes to, and he comes and goes to them and says, you know, what we want to know, and then he brings the answers back. We'll go and talk to people at Knit and Natters and stuff like that and ask them questions, and we just go now wherever we can. I mean, we've got a core of about 14 that will attend meetings, because you're always going to want people, always going to have people that want to attend that sort of formal meeting, and it works. The 14 that we've got work, but we would like more, whether it be digital or the ones that want to attend meetings as such.
Lawrence?
Yeah, we are Chatham Court. We're trying to get one started with the help, as you know. So we've done the leafleting, and we're also going to try and get a neighbourhood watch and a TRA. So we'll see how that goes next year. So we're grateful for the support of yourselves, and we'll see if we can make a success of it.
If anybody's got an area that wants to try and set up a TRA or tenant involvement, if you give us, one of us, a ring, or Dave or whoever, and passes it on, or we went leaflet dropping in the 5 blocks on Chatham Court. We're willing to put in the time and the effort.
Okay, well, thank you once again very much for your presentation, for coming along this evening. One of the things that I'm really keen to see as we transition from Newark and Sherwood homes to bring it back into the council is that the tenants retain a very strong voice, which I know is a view that you share. I certainly share that view, and we do want to ensure that there is very strong tenant participation going forward, as there has been in the past, but if anything, strengthen it even further. I welcome your comments as well regarding future involvement with this committee, and very happy to meet with you, perhaps with Leanne and Rob, and have a discussion about how you can be involved, how often we might see you, and what involvement that might take. So we'd certainly welcome that, and thank you very much once again for this evening.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Okay, that takes us on then to item 6 on the agenda, Syrian Vulnerable Persons Resettlement Scheme. Leanne.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is an update report to share with you the successful delivery of the scheme so far, and also to seek your approval to continue with the programme and to agree a proposed pledge for next year. So the report sets out some background information for you and revisits the numbers and the delivery model that the committee approved back in November 2016, which we have delivered on. We've successfully exceeded the original pledge with the support of the political leadership here, and we've now resettled 12 families, so that's 58 individuals, into Newark and Sherwood from Syria, and we have a further family that's due to arrive in December that will be resettled in Southwell. The partnership has gone from strength to strength. We've now got 2 local charities that have been set up, with over 20 volunteers working with our families, and as you know, we've won an award for the work that we've done locally. The report also provides you some context in terms of what's going on outside Newark and Sherwood in Nottinghamshire through our consortium. There's a table there at paragraph 4.2 that shows you the numbers of families and individuals that have been resettled in all areas but Mansfield and Ashfield, and I would just like to add that they are taking part. They're just not in the consortium that we're working within with Nottingham City at the moment. But as the consortium, we've resettled more Syrian families than any other part in the East Midlands, and Newark and Sherwood have absolutely played their part in taking the highest number. So in terms of looking ahead, the Home Office have announced an extension to the current scheme, which ends in March next year. It does broaden the scope from just wider to from the Middle East to areas in North Africa, and there's a proposal within the report that we look at sort of a per capita share, which is where we started when we looked at this last time, in terms of looking to resettle 9 individuals, so another 2 to 3 families during next year, if you are happy to lend your support and commitment to resettlement. And we are proposing that we would like to continue with the current successful partnership model that we've got for a further year.
Thanks, Leanne. Any questions or comments, Mick?
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd just like to thank Leanne and the whole team for their outstanding work on this. This has changed the lives of every refugee we've taken into Newark and Sherwood. What people might not know is it's not just giving them a home, it's giving them the support, both educational wise to learn English and integrate into the local community, the psychological support, what these people require, and as we heard at full council, the actual integration into the Newark and Sherwood family has been quite astounding, and hopefully may long continue. And I fully support this proposal. It changes lives, it actually improves people's well-being, and it also gives them a future which everybody should be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well, I think the existing scheme has been extremely successful. We've had a number of presentations over the last few years and opportunities to meet the Syrian refugees and also the various support teams that are working on the project, including at full council this year. A number of the support teams were here with us, and we were able to congratulate them on their success in a national award, being highly commended. And there clearly is a need to extend the project. The government's providing some funding to allow us to do it, and certainly has my full support to continue. And I believe that we are very, very well placed for this to continue to be a very successful scheme, with the support that we've already put around the existing families, which will work really well, I believe, with the additional 9 individuals. So looking forward to this, and I'm sure it'll be very successful. So we do have some recommendations. They are on page 28. Recommendations A to C, that the committee endorse the council's ongoing commitment to resettlement, and that we agree to resettle in the region of a further 9 individuals. Precise number to be agreed by Leanne in consultation with myself, Vice Chairman, Opposition Spokesperson, and that we continue the successful local partnership delivery model. And there's more details down there in the recommendation regarding that delivery model on page 28 there. So I'll move those recommendations from the Chair. Seconded by Lawrence. Thank you very much. All those in favour, please show. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. So next, item 7, housing allocation scheme, suitability and parental responsibility criteria. I think, Leanne, you're going to introduce this, and we've also got Maria, I think, coming to assist as well. Thank you.
That's correct. Thank you, Chairman. So yeah, my colleague Maria is here to answer any questions that you may have of the committee, because she sits on the cross-council company project team. But the report that's in front of you today was actually an item that you requested as committee to take a closer look at the eligibility criteria in the housing allocation scheme, with particular regard to suitability and parental responsibility, because I think some of you had cases come forward to you around this particular issue. So the project team have also been looking at this, and from the report that came previously on housing allocations back in June, we do actually have delegated powers to make some minor amends to the scheme, but because there was such interest in this area, we thought we would bring it here to you today as part of the conversation. So the report sets out for you the current suitability criteria. You've got extracts in your papers from there, alongside additional information around the legislation requirements. And, you know, there is some uncomfortable wording in there around, you know, only housing children once and not providing bedrooms in a second home. You know, it's not something that's comfortable to say. But I think in terms of the proposals that are in front of you, I think we've just got to remember that we are trying to prioritise what is a very scarce resource. And when you look at what we are proposing in the paper, paragraph 4, in terms of adding some clarity and perhaps less ambiguity around the housing of children in second homes, we've got to remember that this is to prevent sort of children that are in need or in homeless accommodation perhaps competing for those that already have a settled home and are looking for bedroom spaces in a second home. So like I say, the wording is there for you to consider in terms of replacement text. We have still got some discretion in there, and we are setting out the considerations that we will look at in terms of individual cases. And also on the other side, we are looking and proposing to make some amends to enable larger families receive allocations in smaller properties if required. So the report is there for you to note, with some proposed minor amends for your approval, and myself and Maria are here to take any questions.
Thank you, Leanne. Any questions or comments? Irene.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 31, paragraph 3.7. Also about not rehousing. Now, if a family splits up and the father has the child practically as much as what the mother does, and financially keeps the children and everything together, why are the fathers not being allowed the same privilege as what the mother is? Because when a father has the children and everything, like they can just, when they go on to get a house, they're told what they can bid for. So you've got a father that's got 2 children and they can bid for a 1-bedroom. So you're having a father and 2 children, whether it be 2 boys, 2 girls, a girl and a boy, sleeping in 1 bedroom. They've also been allowed to apply for a 2-bedroom. And now we all know, or we all should know, sat around this table, that Northamptonshire District Council at this moment in time has got very few 2-bedroom properties. So why can't, if this father or mother, whichever way it is, and I don't know whether there's any standing with the fact that the mother claims the family allowance, whether that's got anything to do with it, that it's that's actually looked on as a permanent residence for the children. So if a father has his family 4 nights a week and the mother only has them 3 nights a week, is the father not entitled to the same living accommodation, and them children entitled to the same living accommodation as what they've got the 3 nights or the 3.5 days when they're with the mother?
So in the research that we did as the project group, what we found, generally speaking, is that the evidence supports that usually one parent has a lead parental role, as additional hours, maybe in receipt of benefits, to take care of that child. That parent with that higher level responsibility would be the person who would receive, generally speaking, the allocation through the waiting list. Whether it's mum or dad would be irrelevant.
can I carry on, Mr. Chairman, please? What happens if now we're talking and that mother is not in receipt of any benefits, so that mother is self-employed or she's working and the father of the children is working and he is having to take time off work if the mother won't take time off work and everything else. You've got a complicated system out there, and I know what I'm talking about with this because I'm involved with this. So
Okay.
I've been asked by this particular person to see what I can find out, and is there anybody that he can come and see regarding the circumstances that he's in?
In the report itself, on section 4.1, there's a piece at the bottom that we're proposing to use as guidelines as to how we assess a lead parent. So if somebody isn't in receipt of benefits, because not all parents are, there are a number of other things that we have to look at. Does one of them have a legal order of some description from the court or from a solicitor, because they don't have to have necessarily court orders these days. There will be some services that operate through mediation with HMRC to try and negotiate. One way or another, there will be some evidence to identify which parent is taking the lead responsibility. That is the parent who would be offered the allocation through what we're proposing.
So,
but in terms of the individual case, if they want to come back to Castle House and see somebody from Housing Options, then we can go through what their options are.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sue.
Thank you, Chairman. I take on board Councillor Brown's concerns because I think they are there, but as explained, I was going to say there must be a legal part that says which parent has the major looking at care to do. But I also think this can affect people in private houses, the same sort of thing. And I know from my own grandson, he's quite happy, not that this has happened, but he's quite happy to put a little tent up and sit or sleep in that just for fun. But I'm not suggesting they put tents up, but there are bed settees, and I think they are extremely useful for anybody in any house, because even today where you put children up for a sleepover, they're handy to have. And I think that would be something. I don't know how much they are. They're probably quite expensive, but there must be a living room to these properties, and possibly a child could sleep on there to make it more comfortable from if they've got that issue. But I can see exactly.
Anyone else want to come in on this one? Okay, well, thank you very much, Leanne and Maria. The recommendation is on page 34, paragraph 7, that we note the contents of the report and we approve the proposed minor amendments to the housing allocation scheme which are set out in the report. I'll move that from the chair. Do you have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Rhoda, seconder. Thank you very much. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Item 8 is update on the implementation of the joint working agreement with Nottingham Fire and Rescue Service. So welcome Alan to present this one.
Chairman, this is an update report following on from an earlier report presented to this committee in January, and there was a recommendation at that time to come back to this committee just to give an update on how the implementation of the joint working agreement has gone. You'll see in the report I've outlined the work we've done on the eSINs database, which is a county-wide database where we share information on cases. But I think more importantly, there's a couple of case studies in the report that just really outline the joint working that we've done with the fire brigade and how the joint working protocol has really helped us to pin down who has the most appropriate enforcement responsibility and how we've used that in these circumstances to make a difference to the safety and quality of people's lives in certain areas of accommodation across the district. We continue to work with the fire brigade where situations crop up where it's not clear whether we should be taking primacy of enforcement or the fire brigade do. We meet with them, we talk through the agreement and we reach the conclusion as to who should lead on the enforcement, and then whichever authority it is takes that enforcement action. It's working well, Chairman.
That's very good to hear. Thank you, Alan. Any comments or questions for Alan? Okay, it's good that it's working well. We do have a recommendation on page 38, paragraph 7, that we note the positive contribution that the adoption of the joint working agreement has had, and support the proposal to continue its application. I'll propose that. Have a seconder? Seconded. Take Mick's hand first, I think. All those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to item 9, which is the annual health and safety update. And we'll welcome Richard Bates, come present this report. Thanks, Richard.
Good evening. The report is an annual report, as it describes, and its main purpose is to provide the committee and give members the chance just to review and scrutinise health and safety performance over the last year. It's broken down into 3 main parts. We have an initial part that just gives some background information and reminds the committee of their role in the health and safety function throughout the council. The second part relates to some of the incidents that we've had relating to both accidents and violent incidents across the council within the last 12 months. And the final part is just an indication of some of the significant issues that we've dealt with or have been dealing with in the past 12 months that might be of consideration to the council and committee for consideration. So I'm presuming that you've all read the report, so I don't intend to go through each item, if that's okay.
Thank you very much indeed. Would anyone like to make any comments or ask any questions of Richard? Sue.
I'll just ask a question, Chairman. Looking at 4.2 on page 42, there have been 3 incidents there of verbal abuse. Just out of interest, what happens if an officer's in a small room with somebody who is receiving verbal abuse? What actually can they do?
It depends where they are. At Castle House we have quite a lot of different control measures.
Rooms. So what would they do?
In the interview rooms here we have panic alarm buttons, we have CCTV, we have security, we have mobile alarms, so the reaction time is quite quick to incidents like that. We also have them, they've all been designed in a manner that allows the individual to escape to a safe place without the assailant gaining access to them in a quick way. So there's a desk in the way. So all of these type of areas have been designed and built in that way, and they're built around a risk assessment approach. It's not quite the same when we go out into the district. When we go out into the district, the risk is dynamic and variable, so we have to rely on the individual's training and instruction, and also their section's individual risk assessments that will look at what they're exposed to and decide what is necessary to control that risk to a reasonable level.
Okay.
That could involve things like devices, mobile phones, working together, using 2 people, meeting a person at another site. There's lots of different approaches that we can have.
Okay. It's just that 2 have been out of here.
Yes, that's often the way.
Okay, well, if there's no further... Oh, yes, Mick, question.
With the changing the RIDDOR reporting for work-replace stress, is going to have an impact on the accidents reported to the Health and Safety Executive due to work-related stress and other psychological problems caused through work. I know we're doing a lot of work on that at the moment, but is there any other sort of techniques as in post-incidents, what would reduce
Yes.
stress-related problems for the employees and for the safety. I didn't know if there's anything already in place to actually help members of staff who do have problems with members of the public who come in and...
Yes, that's a good question. There's a violent incident work policy, and in that policy we have a specific section dealing with what you've just described. And it does identify that some people aren't going to react in a favourable way once they've been exposed to that sort of incident. And it does highlight that we will support them, we will give them counselling, we will assist them in any legal advice that they need in taking it forward. We can't always take the case for them because the case is their individual case, but we will support them through that case, and we will assist wherever we can to get to where that needs to be in whichever court it is.
Thank you very much. And thanks for a very comprehensive report, Richard. The recommendation on page 44, which I will move, is that we note the content of the report and the actions taken to deal with the health and safety issues that have arisen across the council's activities. Seconder? Linda, thank you. And all those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous, thanks. That will then take us on to item 10, which is performance monitoring, Yoakin Sherwood Homes. Rob is going to introduce this report, and also like to welcome Dave Newmarch from Yoakin Sherwood Homes to the committee as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So, as you said, the report's giving the committee information in terms of the performance of the company Yoakin Sherwood Homes. As you can see, Appendix A1, that shows the performance outturn for last financial year, and Appendix A2 shows the outturn to the current date for this financial year. Where performance has not met target, Appendix B gives the committee some commentary on why that is, and is there for the committee's consideration. You will note there has been a further email to yourselves in terms of universal credit and the impact that's having on rent arrears, and that's of additional information to supplement that which is supplied at Appendix B. The report also talks about the annual survey of tenants and residents, which is, as I said, it's an annual thing which the company deliver, and it covers a wide range of housing management activities measuring satisfaction. Appendix C gives the committee headline information in terms of performance, and overall you'll note that satisfaction is at the benchmark and it reflects the performance of the company in terms of overall services to tenants. I'd just like to draw and reflect on conversations earlier with the tenants and Councillor Brown's commentary. Look at paragraph 2.8. Obviously, the decision is to bring the company back in-house, and the council, with the committee, we have to look at a revised approach to monitor and scrutinise housing performance. So it gives you as a committee an opportunity to work with involved tenants in terms of how that would look like in the future. So just a point for consideration, Chair, and happy with Dave to take any comments on the report.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Harry.
Thank you very much. When you say involvement of tenants, what have you, Rob? What way these tenants going to be involved? Are these tenants going to be allowed to do what they've done over the last 3 or 4 years with Yoakin Sherwood Homes, just nominate themselves to go and sit on these panels, or will it be done properly like it was before? I'm sorry, don't know your name, councillor, but you did bring up saying, wondering why these committees, why the tenants associations and everything laxed off. So I'm just wondering, because I'm sure if you went round some of the estates on Yoakin Sherwood Homes, and say, do you know who your tenant representative is on this estate? I'm sure they wouldn't be able to tell you. We've been round York Drive and we know people who's on it, but nobody specifically knows who to go to get this help. So I'm just putting it across, Rob, the way it is now and the questions that's being asked. When you've got a proper tenants association that's in full swing and is working, the tenants work with the district council. They work together, and the voice is there from the council and from the tenants. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, just echo what Councillor Brown said. Obviously, it is a commitment between the council, this committee, and tenants. I think Dave, just pass on Dave, just in terms of the current selection process of tenants on the involved groups, just how that process is undertaken.
So, as the involved tenants earlier described, there are a range of mechanisms for tenants to get involved with holding the company to account in terms of how it manages its housing services. It's not strictly true to say that anybody can just turn up. For the tenant scrutiny panel, for example, there's a recruitment and interview and selection process, and the tenants on the scrutiny panel sign up to a code of conduct. And the scrutiny panel looks at specific pieces of work which it chooses as being issues for tenants and issues. So that may be, as the tenants described earlier, that may be looking at responsive repairs. What they don't do is look at individual issues for individual tenants. They're looking at the wider service as a whole. Likewise, with performance monitoring, they're looking at the sort of data that's in the report in front of you, and they ask us questions about why that might be not succeeding, why it is succeeding. There is no mechanism for involved tenants to bring forward issues on behalf of other individual tenants unless those individual tenants are happy for them to act as an advocate, and the company has a process that people have to sign up to for that. Yeah. There's no formal process for any tenant that sits on any of the panels to represent individual tenants unless that individual tenant agrees for them to act as an advocate. That does not mean, I should add, that does not mean that things don't get raised, and that does not mean that we will take that forward, but we take that forward with the individual tenant, not with the involved tenants.
Vic?
Thank you, Chair. So, on the scrutiny panel, the tenants who actually sit on it, as far as I'm aware, are mainly Newark-based tenants. There isn't, or are they actually full Newark and Sherwood wide from... I'm just making sure that we get a full round picture of what's happening in the little villages to what's happening in the actual town centre, because the impact of certain things, what would be happening in a busy marketplace type area like in Newark, is totally different to the issues what residents and tenants are having in, say, Clipston and Edwinstowe at our end, because of the actual, one, the distance away, two, the communication with housing officers and all the other thing what goes with it, and because of the widespread through the villages, it also means that the impact on them residents are actually going to be higher than those within the main area of Newark, because there's going to be more workmen on different properties because of them being around and the area being closer than being 20, 25 miles away.
Current makeup of the tenant panel, off from memory, we have a representative from Loudham, a representative from Sutton-on-Trent, a representative from Hortonville, one from Bridgeward, one from Billsthorpe. There may be another, but it escapes me at this moment in time. I completely take your point. It's really important to get as representative a group as possible. Tenant involvement for the whole housing sector is a challenge, for some of the reasons that the tenants described earlier. People have less time or are less interested in getting involved in very formal structures. I do think what is important, and it was described by the tenants, particularly for those people in outlying areas, taking on board that not everybody has access to the internet or social media, but how we involve in a big district like this, how we involve more isolated, for want of a better word, tenants through digital involvement to make sure that people's voice is heard is definitely a priority for us going forward.
Can I just add as well, see, as Dave said, both Richard and Jeanette sort of reflected your concerns. And so, again, moving forward, it will be a responsibility of this committee to challenge officers in terms of how that is happening in the future.
Lawrence?
So I think it's important that we do get residents who don't have computers to support. I'm sure you'll give them if it's required. So hopefully you'll let them know if they haven't got a computer, they can either go to the housing office in Hortonville or they can go down to the Castle House. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? If not, again, thank you for a very detailed and comprehensive written report, and also the presentation, and the questions have been answered this evening. The recommendation on page 48 is simply that we note the strategic performance information supplied in relation to the activities of Newcombe Sherwood House. Everybody happy that we do that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, well let's do it for you. This is just for noting, but let's do it formally then in that case. So I'll formally propose that we note it. Seconded by Mick. All those in favour? Any against? Abstention. One abstention. It's carried to one abstention. Thank you. So that takes us on to item 11, which is the Housing Management Implementation Project update. Deb.
Thank you. This report gives an update on the progress of the Housing Implementation Project, and as with all projects, the report was almost out of date as soon as I finished writing it. So I'm not intending to go through the report in detail, but I'm happy to expand on element you wish to have questions on. Just a couple of highlight points. So the project team have been established and we have a project team working on it. The 2P process has begun and individual consultation sessions were made available to staff over a 3-week period. There is a high-level revised organisational structure which incorporates the housing landlord service along with other housing functions already in the council and associated functions. That's been developed by the council's chief executive. An update that's not in the report now is we're working towards a transfer date of the 1st of Feb 2020 with the 1st of April date as a backstop should there be any unforeseen issues. The shorter timescale will assist with shortening the period of uncertainty for staff. The 1st of Feb date is for the transfer of staff and finances. It's not a date that the company will wind up because they'll need to continue for a period of time to undertake company-related activity. Arrangements have been made for the Chief Executive and the Director of Nash, and so for they're leaving at the end of December, the Chief Executive leaving at the end of December, and an interim replacement to give the high-level strategic management is currently being recruited to, and that should be fairly imminent. I'm just going to hand over to Natalie, who's going to talk about a few of the operational elements.
Thanks, Deb. So as the report alludes to, we've got some key updates on project work streams. So in terms of staffing, the council are really keen that there's no dip in service to tenants. So we're really working with the company to support service delivery where we can. In terms of staff engagement, we've actually developed quite an extensive programme to support staff throughout the transfer process and once they're in as council staff. So we're going to develop things like training and development opportunities, welcome week, that very first week, so that they feel very much part of the council. In terms of finance, so work is underway to sort of ensure that all of those finance systems and arrangements are operating from the day one of transfer. In terms of contracts, we're currently working on novating all of the company contracts to the council, and we've actually started sending out some of those contract letters to suppliers as of this week. Branding, so we have developed an inventory on everything that's branded, and we will actually bring an update report to the next committee cycle. So in January we will bring that report on branding. Work is also underway with governance arrangements to ensure that appropriate member decision making and officer delegations for the housing service are developed. As Rob said earlier, it will be this committee that will essentially have some of those that remit. The proposals will ensure that tenants will have an opportunity to be involved in the development and oversight of the housing management service, but those proposals will be considered by full council, so they'll be brought forward. And recommendations to note the report are on page 61, Chairman.
Thank you very much again for another very comprehensive report. Any comments or questions for either Deb or Natalie? No? I mean, it is clear from... Okay, I'll say what I was going to say in a moment. I'll go to Mick, just indicated.
Just so it's like noted in the record, can I just make sure with the 2p transfers, all staff coming over won't be losing out on any money, no, so any benefits will be the same or even better, and they're also getting the representation they are allowed by law with their trade unions and all that. Can I just make sure that all that's been done, if that's okay?
Yes, so we follow the exact 2P process. Everybody gets part of the consultation. As part of the 2P process, all staff have to transfer with their current terms and conditions. There are no changes to that. The consultation process does include all the appropriate union representation.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, there's lots of detail there about in the report about all the things that are taking place. There's clearly a lot of work happening, so thank you to you both and to the rest of the team and everyone who's working very hard to make sure that it's a smooth transition, because it's a really important matter that we get this right. But I've got full confidence from everything that I've been told and everything I've read and everything I've seen that is going to be the case. So my thanks and the thanks to this committee, to the whole team, and of course to Newark and Sherwood Homes, who are heavily involved, obviously, and will continue to be, and all the staff there for all the work that's taking place. And I'm very confident that it's going to be a good and smooth transition and enable us to move forward and make the savings that we're expecting. Mick.
Chairman, can we, because of all the hard work, can we get the director who's involved with this to send a thank you to all the members of staff who actually have been, so they know that this committee does actually appreciate the hard work, the time and effort they've actually put into doing all this, if that's okay?
I'm sure we can do that. It'll come either from the director or from me or both of us, and we can do that and show our appreciation for all the hard work that's taking place.
Mr. Chairman, I just thought it was important that the council members know that the shelter is actually opening tonight at 9 o'clock, and it's hard work. I just feel most people may not know I'm a volunteer at the shelter, but it's been open all during the winter till probably around about February. I just think it's important that all councillors know from 9 p.m. till 10:30 the shelter will be open 7 days a week. And it's run by the Salvation Army and Church Together and also the District Council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's going to be at the Baptist Church on Albert Street.
Thanks, Lawrence, for letting us know about that. Just to finish off on item 11 very quickly, the recommendation is very simple and succinct that the project update be noted